With President Donald Trump's recent executive order aiming to streamline permitting and prioritize domestic mineral development, how is GreenMet aligning its strategies to support these objectives?
Well, I would say quite directly. We've had the benefit of having a good dialogue with the folks that are in leadership. So obviously, I've kept in touch with my former boss and all of his folks over the last 4 years. We see this as bipartisan and needed, for multiple sectors and for the United States and the free market as a whole. But we were, kind of singing the song previously when I worked at the White House, and then obviously founding GreenMet and standing it up. We've been kind of hoping to focus on this all along, and so they've been kind enough to take private input from private leaders like myself and others looking to kind of make a dent in the space for the United States pretty directly. I think it opens up a lot of doors. I think there's a heavy focus on using the government as a catalyst for growth, especially in the midstream processing space, which is the biggest gap, I would say. And so I'm optimistic that we're going to see the United States really move forward and become a global leader in this space again, like we once were.
So during your tenure in the first Trump administration, there was a notable push for the U.S. to engage with Greenland in particular due to its wealth of critical minerals. Given the recent developments and your continued involvement, what is your current position on U.S. investment and strategic partnership in Greenland's mining sector?
Well, I've been doing a fair amount of media on this, so I'm sure it's not a surprise that I'm a huge advocate of it. But I would say that it absolutely stands any test of scrutiny, right? So yes, I've been also singing the Greenland song for quite a while, right? And so I've been leading delegations there in a government capacity before anyone even cared about this. I was working at the White House when this got, I think, escalated and blown out of proportion. When it was characterized as us trying to buy Greenland last time, I think there was a lot more complexity going on there that was not necessarily captured by the press. And obviously it's front and center on everyone's minds again, right? And so I've been back over to Greenland multiple times. I've seen essentially the entire country and all of the leaders of various sectors, as well as the new government leadership. And they all overwhelmingly want to see development and U.S. investment. There's a lot of noise that is being, driven that I think is distracting about, what's being put out in social media and, standing up for sovereignty and things of that nature. But the reality is it's ripe and open for the opportunities that we have identified in Greenland. It's not oversimplified. It doesn't mean you can just go into the, glacier ice cap and just start, digging and not have, the right considerations to achieve all this potential. But we've got projects that are real, that have institutional partners, real plans that are looking to be in production, almost immediately. In fact, we have a partner that already is. And so I think there's a lot that can be done here. And I would challenge everyone to really look seriously at those opportunities.
You mentioned there were some concerns about sovereignty there, but when you try and, assess anecdotally the buy-in from the businesses in Greenland, what's your take on what you see?
Well, universally, they're open to development, right? The one issue that has been slightly controversial over the years has been simply uranium development, which, I think is something that has to be approached carefully. I don't think it's off the table with the current administration that just came in. The new prime minister, I think, is very pro-business. He's very pro-development, and he's not taking any sectors off the table. That being said, the projects that we're using to develop our ground game and kind of our foothold, none of them have, uranium or radioactive elements that are of concern. And so, we're looking at projects that are actually already permitted, that they're looking to scale up and develop. So there's really just no risk there. It's just a whole perception issue that I think we're seeing folks get around, right? We've had institutional partners backing some of our projects in Greenland that we're partnered with. I think you're going to see a lot more of that. I think you're looking at a rapid deployment of public and private partnerships along that policy initiative that are totally independent of a lot of this noise on, when Greenland declares independence or what role Denmark plays in sort of, frustrating that or complicating that. Those are things that are grabbing the headlines right now. But the reality is the business case is independent and indisputable without all of that distraction.
Just coming further down south, Drew, GreenMet is working with Torngat Metals on the Estrange Lake Rare Earths project, and that's in Quebec. Why is it important to build strong rare earth supply chains in North America, and how does this project help?
Yeah, so the reality is we need to find every viable project to develop in North America, including Greenland in that. But, yes, the U.S.-Canada relationship and partnership is a key part of this. And, I think regardless, once again, of noise on tariffs and other things, you're going to see continued development, co-investment, and co-leadership between, U.S. leaders in the space like myself and our Canadian counterparts like Torngat. I think Torngat represents an ideal example of how this is done right. So we were the ones that brought Cerberus into funding up to bankable feasibility study. So far, the project's been on time. It's been a resounding success. We're in the process of talking to several institutional partners about building a midstream processing and metallurgy facility in the United States that would be the receptive node of that. That's the story that I think we want to build here, right? We want to use superior technology and true business viability to demonstrate ways to bring in these materials at the right stage and in the right form into our manufacturing cycle.
Let's talk mineral supply chains. I mean, given the current trade tensions between the US and Canada, what potential impacts do you foresee on critical mineral supply chains in particular? And Drew, I'm wondering, how can stakeholders navigate these challenges to ensure continued cooperation and development?
So obviously, anytime there's trade complications, it has an overall effect on the economy that trickles down into every single sector. So I'm not going to deny that. I would also just caution that investors should not be overly concerned about the impact on this sector specifically. And I think it also, especially when paired with the new executive order and signals given not just from the president but the congressional leadership, it demonstrates that now is the time to invest in U.S. projects, whether it's like ours that are focused on processing and metallurgy, or whether it's some of these mines that are going to be fast-tracked and opened up in near time, right? And supplied with a lot of DOD, DFC, and other money. And so, I would say if you're an investor looking for opportunities, the instability is a time where you should really focus on your U.S. projects, right? Which I think are ready to start scaling up at this point.
Because that signing of that order really, conjured up different types of responses, right? With some anxiety mixed in it as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's anxieties being caused throughout the market, right? The Chicken Little types are saying this is the forthcoming sign of the recession they've been waiting for years. And I'm not going to comment on that, except to say that the investability of the U.S. mining, minerals processing, metallurgy, and magnet manufacturing market is strong independent of that. And even if there were to be a recession, which I don't think there will be, you're still going to see a massive business case for advancing this critical new sector that everyone is aware of right now, right? You have everyone from the president to your celebrities to everybody else talking about rare earths, or some are calling them raw earths, critical minerals, but they're aware of the vitality and necessity of this subject matter and how it ties into everything. And so I think that demonstrates that there is serious commitment, certainly from our investors, but I think from others across the sector to really develop this independent of the geopolitical conditions that may develop as a part of all this noise.